Hello again, VC. Uncle Roddus here. First video of 2017, and Happy New Year to you all. I wasn't going to be doing any videos so soon in the new year because I'm not supposed to be buying any records. Ha ha ha. Fancy that. Anyway, got a couple of records for Christmas that I'm going to show, and ended up in town for another one of my medical appointments on Friday, with an hour to kill between appointments, and popped into the record shop for a quick squiz, and of course brought some records, much to my wife's disgust. The Christmas presents, I shall start with those. First up, if you can see it, I hope there's not too much reflection there. This is the new Kings of Leon album, Walls, their latest. I got given this by Lynn, my wife's daughter, my stepdaughter. She knows I'm a fairly keen Kings of Leon fan. As a matter of fact, she got me the last album for Christmas a couple of years back. Yeah, I've been into Kings of Leon for most of their career and really enjoyed their earlier stuff. And then I was sort of thinking, when they finally hit the big time a few years back, and I thought, their music's probably going to go downhill. I mean, it has changed a bit, and it has got quite formulaic. But I do find that their music grows on me as I listen to it and get more familiar with it. And they actually haven't yet put out an album that I didn't grow to like. One of those things. I don't listen to a lot of this sort of commercial stadium rock music or commercial music. Probably the two mainstays are Pearl Jam and these guys, and Jack White. So this one, I've had 2 or 3 listens to it over the Christmas period. It's the vinyl. I don't know if it's the vinyl or if it's the actual recording, but it's quite a flat recording. It's not very dynamic and not a lot of separation. It's not the best piece of recording I've heard. I don't know whether the CD sounds any better or not, but yeah, I'm a little bit disappointed with that. Musically, it's pretty much standard fare for them, so I still need to give it a bit more ear before I can make a final decision on it. This one here, Sonny Rollins, it actually goes that way, and this is a Blue Note reissue from Universal Blue Note from 2015. I have been collecting quite a lot of these reissues on their label from their 75th anniversary reissue program, and this one was down at one of the warehouse shops in town. Now, the warehouse shops generally don't have a lot of stuff that interests me. Their vinyl collections are getting more and more, but it's fairly commercial and mainstream, and of course a lot of the bigger stuff I already have, bigger name stuff I already have on CD, so I'm not really going to bother with it, replacing them onto vinyl. But that was floating around in there. I'd seen it, and there was also some other Blue Notes, and they were a really good price. They were only $25, which is what I'd been paying for them online from Fish Pond before the New Zealand dollar kind of went down against the US. So Fish Pond still have quite a few on their site, but they're up to $30 each now, which is still a pretty good price for a piece of new vinyl, and that's including postage. So the warehouse had 2 or 3 Blue Notes. Unfortunately, they're a very random selection of what turns up in their shops, and I spotted a couple of others that were there which I already had on vinyl. So I told my wife, and she picked that one up for a Christmas present for me, so that was nice. So in the shop the other day, I'm fumbling through the recent arrival bins. So I checked out the New Zealand bins. There wasn't a lot of interest in there for me, but in the new arrival bins I found this. Now, I'd seen this on one of Chris Walker's videos and on one of his shows. This was an album by a man called Sam Hamilton. Intergrapholia is the name of the album. It's sort of electronic pop but it's got a little bit more of an experimental bent to it, so it makes it a little bit more interesting. So not something I normally listen to, but this is actually quite a nice, on first couple of listens, it's actually quite nice. There's a couple of songs I think that will become quite, which I think will enjoy quite a lot. Chris highly recommends a couple of tracks on it. Self-released album from about 2012. Interestingly, it says it was funded by the Arts Council of New Zealand, so that's quite interesting. And then another New Zealand find in the bins. Again, this was in the new arrival bins, but I think it's been floating around the shop for a while. Sometimes they put in records into the new arrival bins that they've actually had in the new bins as the new records they haven't been able to move, and they drop the price a bit and stick them in the second-hand bins. I'm not sure, but this looks like that could be one of those type of albums. This is from 112 Records. That's a label that Chris Walker has talked a lot about on his radio show and played a few records. I think I may have a couple of 112 records floating around in my collection, I can't remember. So there was one he'd shown before and played a track on his show. It's pretty raw, hardcore, not hardcore punk, but it's pretty raw, lo-fi punky stuff. There's some good riffs on there. And then in the jazz section, I was thumbing through there and was really pleased to come across another Mike Knox record. This is a Mike Knox quartet from 1979, recorded in New York. In, Out and Around, it's called. Yeah, nice record. It was actually a really good price. I sort of I was expecting to pay a bit more for it. So I don't know, maybe it turns up in the shops a little bit more often. There was actually another copy of Mike Knox Open Door album, which I picked up from them a while back, which is a fantastic record. I also had another copy of that down there for $20, so that's worth picking up if anyone's in Christchurch, because I really, really like it. And I've been scoring really well on the ECMs the last few trips into the shop. There always seems to be a few coming in, so I managed to pick up a couple more. This one here, which is what's actually playing in the background, is a Jan Garbarek. It's from 1978, recorded in December 77, ECM 1118, and the album is called Places. Listening to it at the moment, it's okay. It's not one of his better ones, to be honest. And this one here, another Jan Garbarek one, the Jan Garbarek Group. This is ECM 1135 from 1979, with Bill Connors, John Taylor, Eberhard Weber and John Christensen. This is called Photo with Blue Sky, White Clouds, Wires, Windows and a Red Roof, which is basically a description of the photo. So I'm thinking that that's what the album is called, because it says photo with ... on the spine, so that's an interesting name. I'm not sure if I've played any of this yet. And the last ECM, I'm really pleased to be picking up all these ECMs. I mean, I've picked up probably about 10 of them in the last 2-3 visits to the shop. 3 visits to the shop, and some really good ones. So this one here is a Mr. Keith Jarrett with Dewey Redman, Charlie Hayden and Paul Motion, and this is the Survivor Suite from 1977, ECM 1085. Now, I mean, it's the pre-80s ECMs that I'm most interested in to find, so that's really cool. All 3 of these were pre-1980, and pre-1980, not sure if they're pre-digital, but quite probably. This one here, there's 2 long tracks. Basically, the Survivor Suite is the beginning and the conclusion. Beginning on side 1, of course. Interestingly, the beginning on side 1 is 27.34 minutes long. That is a huge amount of music to compress onto one side of an album, and that is really, I don't think I've ever seen that much music compressed onto one side of a record. It'd be interesting. Haven't had a close listen. I've had a couple of quick plays. It is a good record. It's better than I expected it to be. I was saying that, especially being some of his longer pieces, because they can get quite classical in nature. but it's pretty much a full-on jazz band he's playing with, and it's not solo. So yeah, really better than I expected. And the starter side too is quite free and pretty free-sounding, wild-sounding playing and blowing going on there. So yeah, and overall this is one of the better Jarrett albums that I have picked up. So really pleased to have that. So there we are. That's the start. That's the start of the new year and the start of the 2017 record collecting for me. Last year, I've probably said this before, was the biggest year of collecting that I've ever had. After buying the turntable in 2015 and buying a bunch of records at the end of 2015, and then really just diving in head first last year and just buying a considerable amount of music and CDs, of course, too. So and by the time I put a new roof on my house and new windows and had the outside exterior all repainted and new gutterings put on, it kind of had to kind of borrow quite a lot of money to do all that. So this year's focus is to pay a lot of that back as much as I can. So the records should be slowing down a bit, although I've got to try and exercise a little bit more discipline in that department. I do have some forms of income that I can dedicate to buying records, so when those eventuate over the year there will be some batches of records coming in for that, so that'll be cool. And if I do manage to sell my old Cyrus system, there will be a large amount of records coming in from the sale of that, because that's quite an amount of money I should be hopefully getting for that. Anyway, that's me for this first video of 2017, so I hope you're all well, and we shall see what the year will bring. Donald Trump is only another 10 days away from taking office in the US, so this is going to be very interesting times around the world for the next 3 or 4 years. So it will be very interesting to see how that happens, what happens there. So let's fingers crossed that that works out okay. Right, thank you.